to our monthly community night. We are pleased that you are here. We're not going to prolong the time. At this time, I would like to bring to the podium Ms. Hart, who will in turn introduce our speaker.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our speaker for the hour. He's a man of many talents and wears a tremendous amount of hats. The most important one being that he's a minister of the Word of God, providing spiritual guidance to this community and its people. He comes to us from the natural state of Arkansas, which we know is deeply rooted in civil rights history, with the integration of Little Rock Central High School by 9 black students in 1957. This integration symbolized the end of racially segregated schools in America. He's a well-educated brother who has a bachelor's degree from the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff and received a master's degree shortly thereafter. He is a graduate of the FBI National Academy, Blackstone School of Law, Senior Management Institute for Police, and the Albany-Doherty Leadership Development Institute. He has been specially trained in areas such as violence against women and gang violence and prevention. His professional affiliations include being on the board of directors for Easter Seals of South Georgia, being a board member presenter for the Target Group, Inc., National and Georgia chapter of Black Law Enforcement Executives, the FBI National Academy Associates, and the International Association of Chiefs of Police and Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police. He has been newly appointed the chairman of the Legislative Committee of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. Our speaker brings over 29 years of law enforcement experience. However, he claims he's only 34 years old. You do the math. You can currently find him serving as Deputy Chief of the Investigations Bureau for the Albany Police Department, speaking against violence and initiating problem-solving strategies at a community meeting or conference around the country, co-chairing a yearly Feed the Hungry and Homeless event held by Hands of Hope here during Thanksgiving locally, sitting in Indian style speaking to a classroom full of 5-year-olds about drugs and gang prevention, or preaching and sharing the Word of God from the pulpit on Sunday morning. So as you can see, our brother is busy working and serving. Now it's time for me to present to you this God-fearing, modern-day Martin Luther King, who speaks at a mile a minute. Oh, and by his own admission, very handsome, my friend, Deputy Chief Nathaniel Clark.
First and foremost, good evening.
Good evening.
It is always a pleasure and a privilege to speak to my fellow citizens. And I just want to thank Ms. Hart for that warm introduction. And I must say that it was all that was called for, more than what is needed, but exactly the way my mother would have introduced me. So you see, I'm a proud man tonight. To Dr. Grant, Director Wilson, board members and guests of the Albany Civil Rights Institute, I want to thank you tonight for allowing me the opportunity to address you. I must attest that I am no elaborate speaker. I am no politician. However, I am a humble servant of the citizens of Georgia. Think about it for one moment. It was the great poet William Shakespeare who coined the phrase, "To thine own self be true." To be true to thyself is to know, recognize, understand, and respect those characteristics which makes us so uniquely different. It is not by accident that the prescription for mental health left by our ancestors simply said, know thyself. And in doing that, we must honor, respect the laws and rights of every citizen. And as such, there is no better time than now for us to pause from our busy schedules and reflect from which we come. think about it for one moment. Which we come, whipped like children. Which we come, abused. Which we come, sold as though we had barcodes on us and scanned at the register of Walmart. From which we come, worked in the scorching heat from sun up to sundown. From which we come, prohibited from reading and voting. From which we come, we endured the church bombings, signs that said colored only, and we were fed the scraps, hog feet, pigtails, and sometimes we even had to eat the hog's grunt. From which we come. And I know there's some in the audience tonight, on a more relaxed note, can relate to what I'm going to say now about which we come, having been hit with a switch or the nearest shoe that our parents can get their hands on, having your ear burned with a straightening comb, having been told, shut up, or I'll give you something to cry for.
All right.
Scared to go home because we received a bad report card, or being pinched in the church because we went to sleep. From which we come, having been told to turn off the television, get off the telephone, sit down and be quiet if there's a storm outside, because God is doing his work. From which we come. And have you ever heard your parents make the statement as though they were talking to God? Lord, don't let me kill this child. Right. At the same time, they're giving us a good old-fashioned whooping. But nevertheless, we ought to thank God this evening for providing us with the grace, the mercy, and the strength to endure, from which we come. Today, if I had to give this message a title, I would title this message this evening, "The Dream is Yet to be Achieved." So if you don't remember anything else I said tonight, remember the dream has yet to be achieved. This evening we find where the dream maker sent a gift to America in the form of a dreamer. That dreamer was named Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was also called a drum major for justice, a drum major for peace, but most importantly, he was called a drum major for Jesus. He was a symbol not only for the civil rights, where he challenged us to lift our souls to a king awareness, but he challenged America to be the best that it could be. One nation under God with liberty and justice for all men. He maintained a God-given mindset that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. You see, he was God sent. He was a voice for the voiceless, with a clear methodology and ideology: love thine enemies. If you're hit, turn the other cheek. Unlike so many of us today, we've graduated from the drive-bys to the walk-bys. We'll walk by and won't speak. Walk by and clench our fists. Walk by and roll our eyes. Walk by acting as though we are all of this, and as my daughter would say, a bag of chips when we're nothing more than a Happy Meal. Superman without a cape. But by the grace of God, the dreamer showed himself to be a master tactician and a media manipulator by committing youth to the struggle against policemen with man-eating dogs and fire hoses poised to wash them away as though there was nothing more than trash. In my reading and in my research, I found where there was a police commissioner by the name of Bull Connor. And he had dogs. He told the dogs to sick them. But what Bull Connor didn't know is that we had something that the dogs couldn't bite.
All right.
He got his fire hoses. But like Jeremiah, there was a fire wrapped up in our bones that the fire couldn't put out. We suffered the blows and abuse of the sticks and the whips. But by the grace of God, the wounds wasn't strong enough to hold us down. Yeah, we sometimes gave out, but we never gave up. We sang, worked, prayed, ate, and stood together. Unlike so many of us today, we won't stand up for anything. But I stopped by to ask you this evening, what happened to pride, dignity, love, and respect for ourselves and others? This evening, as I stand before you, I can clearly see in my mind's eye a servant king standing on the mountaintop, having a talk with Jesus, preparing his own eulogy by the way of his last sermon. And I can clearly hear him today as he makes a statement that if any of you are around when I meet my death, I don't want to talk too long. If somebody have to deliver my eulogy, tell him not to mention that I have the Nobel Peace Prize. I would like for somebody to say that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. tried to love somebody. I want to be able to say that I tried to feed the hungry and wipe out injustice. Yes, if you want to say that I was a drum major, say that I was a drum major for justice, a drum major for peace, a drum major for righteousness, and all those other shallow things will not matter to me. I just want to leave a committed life behind. Yes. And if I can help someone as I pass along the way, if I can tell somebody that they're traveling down the wrong lane, yes, then my living will not be in vain. And as I think about the dreamer, when I think about how he endured, the prince of the civil rights movement, not only he, I think about how others endured and the sacrifices they made. It sometimes brings tears to my eyes. Mm-hmm. If anybody was to ask me this evening in the city of Albany, I would tell you that it does no good to feed the stomach 3 hot meals a day and the soul 1 snack pack a week. Well, if you were to ask me on this blessed day here at the Civil Rights Institute, I will tell you that we're standing on the ashes of others. And as such, it's time to shut up, yes, sir, or put up. Yes, sir. It's time to stop backstabbing one another. Stop portraying to do right with a do wrong mind. Yes, sir. You know, sitting in what we call that lavish office, hiding behind a title, surrounded by fork-tongued friends, yes, listening to the gospel on the radio, looking good and smelling good on the outside, while smelling like raw sewage or leftover chitlins on the inside. When all we possess is a wall full of degrees and a brain that's still in bondage, the dream has yet to be achieved. All that our foreparents endured, just the thought of preferring slavery over liberty. All right. Just the thought of preferring sin over salvation. Mm-hmm. Whips and chains over freedom. Friday night party services over Sunday morning church services. The dream has yet to be achieved. When we think we've made it, you know, because we stay in what we call an upscale neighborhood, yeah, able to wear what we call some of that lavish clothing, and our pronouns complement our nouns. All right. However, we're unable to realize that we're the head and not the tail. Jesus. We start looking down on other folks. Jesus. We don't teach our children about the values of life, mm-hmm, the importance of helping others. We don't educate our children. We're doing nothing but walking around stealing oxygen, too lazy to fall. I stopped by to tell you this evening that the dream has yet to be achieved. until we stop this madness of violence in our community, violence in our state, violence in our nation, especially the violence that's being committed by our youth. Think for one moment. When we lose just one youth, who's to say we haven't lost a Thurgood Marshall,
Well,
a Barack Obama,
Jesus.
Sonia Sotomayor, a Oprah Winfrey, a John Lewis, and so many others? You see, the dream has yet to be achieved. When our daily menu consists of being full of dope with no hope. You see, we're too mean for hell and unfit for heaven.
Well,
We're refusing to realize that we smell like mess because we're standing in mess, and therefore we have become mess. The dream has yet to be achieved.
yes.
When our youth reveal no hope, no faith, no respect, no love, and no education, they're walking around using ebonics while wearing their pants sagging. And then our African American queens walking around showing everything except a label that says Victoria's Secret. The dream has yet to be achieved. Until we come together and put an end to this madness of violence, the dream will never be achieved. Until we come together and stop the racism, poverty, segregation, and spiritual starvation, the dream has yet to be achieved. Until we can rejoice, having reached that day when every voice that says we can't is silenced, the dream has yet to be achieved. And this evening, I hope you don't mind if I just go ahead and keep it real.
Say so.
Though the struggle continues, we all know some folks of the mindset that I made it.
All right.
Oh, they walk around bragging about taking one step forward,
Yeah.
when in reality they've taken 2 steps backwards.
Yeah.
Those same folks oftentimes don't vote. They refuse to help their neighbors. You see, the Bible says, you think when others walk out, when the world walks out, we ought to walk in if we are truly our brother's keepers. They partake in injustice, exclusion, and outright hatred by being silent. Those same folk that think they've made it, they ridicule the need for accepting government assistance. They have a self-serving vision, one that only about serving self. Those same folks that think they've made it offer no parental guidance. They'll call the police on an 8-year-old and tell the police, come pick up little Johnny because he won't get up and get ready for school. Those same folks that think they've made it is of the mindset that it's all right for the police to come out and question other folks when they are victim. But they don't want to get involved when other folks are victim. You see, if I may paraphrase Dr. King, who says that we're standing on the threshold of a new day, and we must demand that our nation's bank cash our checks. We must refuse to believe that the bank of justice is bankrupt, or that there is insufficient funds in the great vaults of the opportunity of this nation. To do otherwise, the dream has yet to be achieved. You see, I stopped by to tell you, we must refuse to fall prey to the mindset that hatred and injustice is acceptable at any level of reasoning. We must display the true fabric of our being, that liberty is the secret of happiness, and that courage is the secret of liberty, and that it's dangerous to discourage thought. It's dangerous to discourage hope. It's dangerous to discourage imagination. You see, to do so breeds fear.
Well,
That fear breeds repression. That repression breeds hate. And that hate menaces a stable society. To do otherwise, the dream has yet to be achieved. Because of our struggles that so many before us have endured, we witness great black athletes, celebrities, and rappers who earns millions of dollars each year, such as Beyonce Knowles, LeBron James, Alicia Keys, Tyler Perry, and so many others. Yet there's still too many people living in poverty. We have great achievements in the field of education, yet there are too many children that are illiterate and have given up on the hope of ever succeeding in life. We are witnessing our nation's first African-American president, President Barack Obama. Yet we have folks standing in line for hours to vote and who are refused adequate health care. We are the richest nation in the world, yet we still have little children that goes to bed every night with an empty stomach. We have advanced technology, cell phones, iPads, and so much more, yet we are witnessing before our eyes our youth being killed in the church,
Jesus.
in the park, in the malls, in our theaters, and even in their own front yards.
Lord have mercy.
Nevertheless, I'm just crazy enough to believe. You see, I can call my own self crazy. I'm just crazy enough to believe this evening that our future is still full of opportunities.
Yes.
There's still work to be done.
Yes.
There's still room for dreamers. We must not turn back. We must not give up, shut up, or let up, because there's hope that runs amidst our veins.
Yes,
we must stop complaining and finger pointing,
yes,
and accept responsibility for our actions as well as those for our children.
Yes, sir.
We must remember that we're still on the battlefield and that we have a responsibility to make the American dream become a reality for all people in this great nation.
Yes, sir.
We must do more than give lip service. Let there be no mistake this evening. There are some troubled times ahead.
Well,
There are some detours. There are some potholes.
well,
And what I'm talking about when I say detours and potholes, violence, disappointments, people trying to discourage us, self-pity, depression,
well,
the loss of a job, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a friend. But as long as we travel with God, as long as we open doors of those who are in need, as long as young men see visions and old men dream dreams of a better world, as long as we're filled with the Spirit, then whatever we endure, there is hope and we shall overcome. Amen. This evening I want to share a story with you of a little frog. I once read a book, and for this little frog who was born amidst the whale, and he began to hop around in the whale, and he said to himself, there's more water in this well than I will ever need in life. I have everything that I need. But one day this little frog looked up and he can see light at the top of the whale. So with great curiosity and with all caution, he began to take little steps one by one to reach the top of the whale. And he found himself on dry land. This little frog began to hop. And he hopped to a pond where he saw even more water. He was so amazed. He couldn't stop there. So he hopped along a little bit further, and he found an ocean.
well,
He was in total dismay. Tears started flowing from his eyes. His heart began to weaken. You see, in that whale, his vision was blurred. He had no dream because he thought he had it all. And today I stopped by to challenge everybody, not only you, but everybody in the city of Albany, everybody in the state of Georgia, everybody in the great United States of America, to start hopping and clear your vision. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that while we're hopping along the way, Satan is going to be on standby. You know, with all of his tricks and devices. You see, some would have us to believe that we can never stop gang violence, school shootings, attacks on the elderly, robbery, and even murder. But I stopped by to tell you, yes, we can. And some would have us to imagine that it's all right to get high on drugs and alcohol and pay for rehabilitation when we can be well for free. But I stopped by to tell you this evening, yes, we can. Some would have us to envision that it's acceptable to fill our veins with dope, then our hearts and our brain with hope, or that it's all right to steal and do God's will. But I stopped by to tell you, yes, we can. Yes, we can refuse to accept second place when first place is available. Wow. Yes, we can pray and play together in a spirit of harmony and peace. Yes, we can obtain a good education and leave a positive mark on mankind. Yes, we can stop making excuses. I'm too poor. I'm of the wrong color. I don't speak well. You see, I can. It's nothing more than a cousin to I don't want to. Wow. Yes, we can stop the madness of violence in our communities. And yes, we can repair broken homes.
Oh, yeah.
Broken communities. Yes, we can. I don't know about you, but every morning when I wake up and put my feet on the floor, I know in my mind's eye and I know in my heart, all of my distractors, even Satan himself, are saying to themselves, oh crap, he's up. Think about it for one moment. When I get up, I'm in the right frame of mind. Yes, I can. Because I know a spirit, and I know God who sits high and look low with all power in his hand. So yes, I can. And like the dreamer himself, I too have a dream. I have a dream that one day we'll stop home foreclosures. We'll be able to feed the hungry and truly be our brother's keeper. I have a dream that one day all of God's children will stand against injustice and oppression, and we use the power of words instead of violence. I have a dream that one day we will sow joy in the midst of hate. We'll sow peace in the midst of wars. We'll sow justice in the midst of injustice. I have a dream that one day, whether we're standing atop Mount Rushmore, or in the depths of the Grand Canyon, or we're standing amidst the Mississippi River or the Pacific Ocean, that we will be a shining voice for all people of all nationalities, of all races. I have a dream today that one day, like the three Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who refused to bow down to an idol god, we will refuse to allow injustice to raise its ugly head. I have a dream that one day we'll join hands and we'll march to that garden while the dew is still wet. And in the midst of that garden, I can clearly see in my mind's eye this evening, we'll plant 3 rows of peace. Peace of mind, peace of heart, and peace of soul. But we must not stop there. There's still more work to be done. So we'll plant 3 rows of squash. We'll squash out hate, squash out gossip, we'll squash out discrimination. But we still can't stop there, because I have a dream that there's still more work to be done. So we'll plant 3 rows of turnips. You see, no garden is complete without some turnips. So we'll plant 3 rows of turnips. You see, we'll turn up for Jesus, we'll turn up for service, and we'll turn up to help one another. I have a dream that one day, you see, every now and then, when my lease on life expires, I have a dream that I will board Jesus one with a first-class reservation en route to my Father's house. where there are many mansions. And in this house, I have a dream that there'll be a master suite filled with joy, a fireplace of peace, a dining room of grace, and a pool of milk and honey. I have a dream that one day, from the White House to the courthouse to the state house to the outhouse, that we shall overcome and rejoice that we've made it to the mountaintop. I have a dream that one day we will proclaim that we're an airplane. You see, an airplane takes off against the wind, not to hold it down, but to lift it up. Are there any dreamers in the house today? If there are any dreamers in the house today, I wish somebody would stand to your feet and wave your hands. I wish somebody would stand to your feet and stomp your feet, act like you just don't care. I have a dream one day. Are there any dreamers in the house?
All right.
You see, yesterday is but a dream.
All right.
And tomorrow is only a vision.
All right.
But today, well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness.
Yes.
And tomorrow a vision of hope. And I leave you with this thought. What have you done to bring about change in the city?
Yes, sir.
In your respective communities, in the state, in the nation? Or do you sit by watching the soap operas, gossiping about somebody else's business, and you simply do nothing and pretend that the problems don't exist? Are you comfortable in your so-called comfort zone? If you receive the call to join in to tear down the walls of discrimination, racism, and other wrongdoings, would you answer the call? Or will you make up an excuse, I'm not strong enough, I got to cook a pot of greens, the problem is too big?
Well.
Can you find somebody else?
Well.
Or will you simply ignore the problem? Thank you tonight for allowing me the opportunity to address you. May God continue to bless the great city of Albany, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you, and God bless.